Like the story about Steve Harvey's divorce that is going around the internet as celebrity gossip, I want to tell you my story. Like all the talk and excitement about the famous TV star's breakup story, my story is full of twists and turns that have kept friends and family interested. From the first rumors about our rocky relationship to the way our individual dreams keep getting in the way, it seems like we're all living in a reality show. But as the dust settles, we realize that sometimes the most interesting things in life are the everyday ups and downs of regular people who are going through extraordinary things. So, while the rest of the world continues to talk about and speculate about the latest celebrity scandals, let's not forget to appreciate the amazing stories that are happening in our own lives. These are the real moments that make us who we are. From the first time I met Steven, I was interested in him. I liked him right away because of his charisma, his worldly charm, and the way he stood up for himself. I didn't know that behind those beautiful eyes was a web of lies that was too hard for me to figure out. Maybe it was the way he held everyone's attention in a room by telling stories about his travels and experiences. His sense of humor seemed natural, and his talk was interesting. Every word he said was like a symphony, and everyone who could hear him was enchanted. Steven, on the other hand, had a dark side that was well hidden by his charming exterior. The pull was strong, and the charm was too tempting. But with every lie he told, I got deeper and deeper into his web. Soon, his stories started to feel like knives going through my heart. He had fooled me with his smooth talk. I didn't find out until it was too late that the man who told those interesting stories wasn't the Prince Charming I had made him out to be. Behind the charm and confidence was a skilled manipulator who told a lot of lies while making them look like the truth. Every day that went by showed me a scary truth. The Steven I thought I knew was just an illusion, a skillfully woven web of lies. Steven had an uncanny knack for reading people, manipulating them, and lying to them without feeling bad about it. With his lies, he had made a thin tapestry that began to fall apart when a small comment made me think of something. Slowly but surely, his fake life started to show itself. Steven's influence was so big that it was like a puppeteer tugging on heartstrings and thought processes. His untold stories made a never-ending loop of lies that got more complicated as they went on. A slip of the tongue or a bad joke led him to say something that made me doubt him. I started to pick holes in the perfect picture of reality that he had painted for me. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself in a state of constant doubt. Strange things from Steven's past started to come up again, revealing more about who he really is. Each small part of his carefully made world started to look less and less like the whole he had planned. His well-thought-out plan to trick people started to sound strange and slowly fell apart at the seams. As the evidence against him grew, it showed a long line of lies and tricks. His once magical world, which had lost all of its magic, made way for a harsh reality, a fact that couldn't be denied, just like Steven's constant lies. As the wife of this man who kept cheating on me, I was in a lot of trouble. I thought he might be cheating on me, but Steven's cleverness always put my mind at ease. He liked getting away from my questions and laughing to himself as he tricked me and other women who came to him for comfort. Steven's cruel games of manipulation held my trust hostage in this fake world of lies. His control over my feelings turned me into a puppet that his lies could pull back and forth. He was proud of this act, and he got some strange satisfaction from the fact that he could trick not only me, but also the crowd of women who found temporary safety in his false promise of devotion. His two-faced personality messed with my mind, sending me into fits of paranoid doubt and heartache that broke me. I had a hard time telling the truth from the lies when I was stuck in this maze of lies. Even though he told me a lot of lies, I longed for a hint of honesty. Instead, I was met with nothing but lies. He was good at lying, and I was just the canvas on which he painted his intricate tapestry of betrayal. Steven's narcissistic traits came out of every part of him, and each carefully planned lie made him seem even more brazen. His lies were told with such skill that I often wondered if I was going crazy. Every time he came home, things like his slightly lingering perfume, his ever so slightly ruffled shirt, and his mysterious phone calls made it clear that I was not welcome. Their sound, on the other hand, only made me feel worse because it reminded me over and over again of how silly my marriage was. I was always feeling the bitter taste of betrayal, but I didn't have the guts to break out of this vicious circle. Steven wasn't just fooling his wife or a few mistresses. His lie was a grand masterpiece that got better and better as time went on. As a wife, I was stuck with the biggest lie of my life, which was my husband. It was the most ironic tragedy of my life. Stephen often had big parties, and it was at one of these that I got the chance to get even with him. Hector, our chiseled and statuesque bodyguard, came to the party. He had always been a part of our lives, doing his job well while being completely unaware of the chaos going on inside our golden cage. I saw Hector, with his broad shoulders and measured grace, moving through the crowd. I saw him in the middle of a whirlpool of extravagance and hollow laughter. His eyes, which were like bottomless wells of innocence, just reflected the glimmer of the grand chandelier. It was clear that he had no idea what was going on behind the friendly smiles. The poisonous whispers, the sly looks, and the constant struggle for power were all too complicated for him to understand. In this crazy circus, his only goal was to make sure we were safe. I was drawn to him because of his unwavering loyalty and dedication, which stood in stark contrast to the cruel politics that went on inside the luxurious walls of our mansion. Our home, which was supposed to be a safe place, had turned into a place where people played for power, and Hector, the loyal gladiator, stood as the only honest person in a sea of lies. As soon as I saw Hector's piercing eyes from across the room, I started to think of a plan. I started having an affair with him behind his back because I was angry, hurt, and in love with him at the same time. Stephen thought Hector didn't pose a threat to his schemes and lies, but he was wrong. In the quiet corners of our secret meetings, whispers of intrigue could be heard. As Hector's power over me grew, so did the clever tricks he used to get Stephen to do what he wanted. A plan to get even was picking up speed. What started out as a game turned into something much darker and more dangerous. Our quick looks at each other turned into a silent agreement that something had to give. Stephen's dislike for Hector only made things worse between us, which were already tense. Slowly, the veil of lies fell away, revealing a complex web of lies and betrayal. I didn't miss the irony. After all, Stephen was the one who taught me how to lie, and now I was using that skill to plan his downfall. But I couldn't deny the thrill of this dangerous balancing act, where I was always one step ahead of Stephen's blindness and ignorance. Even though Stephen's mistake made me worry, it was Hector's mysterious charm that really drew me in. Stephen was very good at spreading rumors and lies, but his eyes were so sharp that they saw right through them. They showed me a truth I had been blind to for a long time. With Hector's wise advice, I started to carefully and quietly take apart the web of lies. Often our secret meetings took place at night, when no one could see us and Stephen couldn't spy on us. The thrill of the secret meeting seemed to fuel our desire for justice, and the risky move gave our new relationship an unexpectedly passionate edge. Late nights in dark corners, plans made in whispers, and the faint smell of Hector's cologne were my dangerous way out of Stephen's dangerous grip. I knew that one day, the truth would come out in a terrible showdown. Hector and I were walking on a tightrope, and the slightest mistake could have led to terrible things. However, we were willing to take this risk because it was part of this dangerous game of truth and lies. This dance with danger was so exciting that even though I knew I was going to die, I enjoyed the thrill of it all. I hadn't felt that alive in a long time. Stephen, who was too sure of himself, didn't know about our secret alliance, and the fact that he underestimated Hector only made us more determined to end his reign of lies. So Hector and I made plans in the dark and in secret, waiting for the day when our hard work would finally pay off. Hector's love for her was intoxicating. In spite of my husband's cheating, each date was a whirlwind of feelings. Together we made a web of lies that was just as good as Stephen's, and we enjoyed the secret closeness we had. Hector and I met at our usual meeting place late one night, when it was dark and we were both scared. In the dim light, he gave me a small envelope full of the proof we were looking for. Inside were papers, photos, and letters that showed how many times Stephen had lied to them. As we skimmed through the contents, our hands were shaking because the betrayal was much worse than we had thought. A series of transcriptions, cryptic codes, and old diary entries showed a side of Stephen that we had never thought existed. In the once harmless envelope, there were rumors of betrayal, hints of lying, and a full list of the plans. As cold fear gripped our hearts, we realized that Stephen had gotten us caught in a dangerous web of lies and trickery. We were afraid to talk about what we had learned, and our silence said a lot about the lies that filled the air at night. We went our separate ways that night, still in shock and worried about the huge challenge that lay ahead. Would we get through this complicated maze of a plot? Time would have to tell. I knew I had to do something. With this illegal evidence in hand, I confronted Stephen in the cold light of day. My heart was pounding as I watched his front fall apart in front of me. He stared at me in shock, but he couldn't trick me anymore. I asked for a divorce and told him I wanted half of his huge fortune, which was more than $200 million. In the steady beat of my heartbeat, the broken promises of our wedding day came back to me like an old, forgotten relic. How stupid I was to fall in love with the charm that hid a monster. His betrayal was horrible, and he told a lot of lies on top of it. As I enjoyed the taste of my brave confrontation and watched the shock spread across his face, a grim satisfaction settled into the bottom of my heart. This step, as painful as it was an important part of my recovery and a way to the free future that lay beyond this fake marriage. I made a solemn promise to myself as I held this powerful piece of proof in my hands. I would never fall for his lies again, no matter how sweet they were. The impending divorce, which was my ticket to freedom, sent a tremor through the life we had worked so hard to build, which was now in shambles. I didn't care about his money, which was a dirty reminder of what kind of person Stephen had become. Stephen had to take the bitter pill of justice when he lost half of his wealth. The huge amount of $200 million was not the win, but it was a clear sign of his failure and my resounding success. After being smothered for years, it was time to rise from the ashes of this dishonest relationship like a phoenix. I was overwhelmed by a storm of strong feelings, and I watched Stephen stutter as he tried to find the right words. But there was nothing he could say that would make up for what he had done. His hands were shaking, and his once persuasive and confident voice turned into a weak whimper, which was a big change from who he said he was. When I thought about the successful business empire, of which $100 million would soon be mine legally, I couldn't help but feel like a winner. All the lies he had told over the years were finally falling apart like the sandcastle he had built. This showed that no amount of money could protect a house of lies from the relentless wave of the truth. Stephen had no choice but to give in to my demands because he was completely outed and ashamed. One last lie had outsmarted all of his other betrayals. As the divorce papers dried, I finally got a taste of the freedom I had been wanting for years. When I got a taste of freedom, I felt the darkness that had once held me prisoner fade away. The weight of the rejected love that had once bound my spirit was lifted away like dust from a worn-out record. Stephen's punishment was long overdue, since his lies and tricks led to his downfall in the end. I could still hear echoes of his lies in my mind, but they no longer held me prisoner. I saw the irony in the fact that it was his betrayal that freed me in the end. I was able to see through the lies and tricks and come out on top. With each passing second, the balm of my newfound freedom helped to heal the wounds of betrayal. Years of torture had made me strong, and now that strength was my lighthouse, leading me to a future free of the chains of betrayal. This freedom was the best way I could get back at Stephen, who would always remember how ashamed he was. Still, I couldn't ignore how bitter the victory was after it was over. Even though I had won, I had become a mirror of Stephen's lying. And as I took ownership of the money that was now mine, I realized that real love, trust, and honesty were the priceless things I still wanted. In the quiet, the hollowness of victory echoed through the halls, reminding me of how low I had gone to win. Like the ghost of Stephen's betrayal, my victory was hollow, just like the promises he had made in the past. I stood among the riches I had won, which were beautiful but lacked any kind of warmth. Even though I had everything I wanted, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. It was a grim reminder that time couldn't fix a broken trust. Even though I had a lot of money, I couldn't ignore how much I missed real love, honesty, and loyalty. I thought these qualities were more valuable than all the jewels in the world. The bittersweet conquest had shown me the harsh truth. Money could build kingdoms, but it couldn't give me those important bonds of trust and love, which I longed for deeply.